The original post was someone who claimed to have found the journal on campus and began to transcribe the entries into the thread. While there are 200 keys, 83 are missing. 3 exist in title only, 014 the keyboard, 115 the cordless phone, and 155 the green bottle. No further information is available on these. During the next few videos we will explore this journal, so sit back and enjoy. In Chinatown there's this cyber cafe in the same building as the Kingfisher. It's small and cheap and old. The walls are still decorated with Diablo 2 and Quake boxes. The computers are a bit behind too, but that's not really what the patrons go there for. Go in, buy some time, and load up Heart of Wit. It's an Asian MMO, the kind with graphics that look like Gaia Online. Make a free account and wander into the City of Wit. The City of Wit will be inhabited by a half-dozen players, all of whom will be talking in what looks like Asian script of some kind but is actually hyper-stylized English. After your eyes adjust, you'll realize that the player character names are the names of people you know in your everyday life. Most will ignore you, but occasionally they'll give you quests or challenge you to a duel. The quests are simple. Kill 5 dragon hatchlings and we'll give you a gold ingot. That kind of thing. Whatever you do, never accept a challenge to duel and always do the quests. Names aren't the only things that cross over between the game and reality. 002, on closing mirrors. Hey Sandy. We miss you down at the Coven. Matt said you wanted me to write up the mirror thing. Ingredients: 1/2 cup flour, about an ounce of milkweed, the wings of a monarch butterfly. Grind the ingredients together in a stone bowl until they form a fine powder. Pour the powder on the mirror you want to close and light it with a wooden match. The mixture closes about half a square foot of mirror. You'll have to use more for larger surfaces. Matt said you wanted to know if it only works in Calgary. I don't know if it's the city itself, or just the elevation. Sorry. Jess P. 003, the clubhouse. During the winter months, the river grows shallower in places. Between this and the ice, in the dead of winter, it's possible to walk across it in places where the ice is particularly thick. During these months, when the weather is 30 below or colder, walk to the very end of the street, to the cul-de-sac. Between a large, ill-kept lot and a house from the early 80s you will find an ill-kept bike path. Though it was once paved, the roots of the trees that line it have rendered the pavement bumpy and impassable for cyclists. Walk to the end of the path and climb down the rainwater outflow at the bottom, then cross the ice to one of the island-like patches of scrub and small rock. Look for a damaged, dingy little shack made from water-damaged wood and corrugated tin. If you fail to find it, move on to the next pile of rocks, and then the next, until eventually you find a small structure. When you do, hold your hand up to the door. It will either be very cold or very hot to the touch. Neither is truly fortuitous, but you'll be dressed for the cold and so it will be easier to weather. When you step inside the shack, you will find that it is empty other than a small boy who hanged from the roof by a hastily tied noose. His clothing will not be contemporary, rather it will be aged and ragged to the point of anonymity, unlike the boy's perfectly preserved body. After a time, his eyes will open, and the rotted-out sockets will stare into your eyes. Do not blink, do not look away, do not even move. The room's temperature will grow more extreme during the hours-long moment you spend looking into those holes. And then they will close. From that moment on, you will not feel the temperature anymore. Any temperature at all. Nor will you get burns, frostbite, heat stroke or hypothermia. 004, the funeral parlor. Most of the city's funeral parlors belong to one company, but a handful of allegedly independent firms survive. In reality, all of the city's funeral parlors are owned by a big business in some way or other, including a small, somber brick building in the deep southeast. This particular funeral parlor has allegedly been closed for years, but lights can be seen in the windows at night, giving credence to the story that it's haunted. It isn't. What's going on inside is far stranger. In order to gain admittance, you will have to wear traditional funeral attire, black and subdued rather than anything flashy or informal. Bringing flowers is said to help. When you're admitted, whatever you do, do not sign the book or you will find that the exit is barred for you. Instead, offer your condolences to the mourners, who seem to be a collection of people of all ages and races, most of whom are wearing old, worn suits or patched dresses. The funeral repeats itself every night at 8. If you come at any other time, you will be required to wait in the main hall while the staff prepare. During the ceremony itself, never volunteer to speak and never view the body. Both would draw too much of the deceased's attention. Instead, listen with rapt attention to the eulogy, as it is a valued component of the secret history. Leave before the funeral is done, and just like in those old Greek stories, never eat anything anyone offers you. 005, the silverware set. There is an old, abandoned house by the Curry Barracks. Something about the architecture, furnishings and decor suggests grandmotherliness in some vague sense. Through the dirty windows you will be able to make out that everything is covered by a thick layer of dust. The back door is usually unlocked. Enter it at night, but bring a flashlight with you as the house has not had power in years. Make your way forward, through the kitchen, and into the house's small dining room. Around the table you will see 5 mummified corpses, still dressed the same way they were that day in 1992 when a visit to Grandma's took a turn for the worse. On the table will be a wooden tray with a sheet of green velvet laid across it, and across that the remains of a strange silverware set. The design seems almost nautical, taking inspiration from conch shells and other ocean forms. The tray and the silverware on it will be the only thing in the house untouched by dust. Take a piece and slip it into your pocket. For as long as you carry it, your body will slowly grow more and more decayed and aged, but you will never suffer from any of age's debilitating ravages. 007, the beach. There is a beach within the city. To find it, step into any elevator and go to the top floor. Press every button in ascending order, including the close and open door buttons. Instead of opening onto the next highest floor, the elevator will open into a small cottage. The door of the vacant cottage will open onto the beach. The beach is warm and apparently temperate, shockingly beautiful at every hour, but blood and some sticky black substance will color the white sand in long streaks. The beach is bordered on one side by an impossibly thick forest. Entering this will make your life forfeit. At sunset and sunrise, a group of men dressed in the traditional clothing of different religions, most prominently Ashkenazi rabbis and Protestant ministers, will emerge from this forest and search the beach in silence, sifting through the sand as penance for their lives of deception. These figures will be so taken with their work that they will refuse to talk to you, only muttering searching. Searching. Must keep searching. In their native tongue. Total darkness and proper sunlight burn these poor souls, so they must return to the forest. Otherwise, you will be alone on the beach. The water stretches impossibly far as the eye can see, and further still. Wider and higher than the ocean, and far stiller, this water will soothe you as you gaze upon it. But never let it lull you to sleep outside of the cottage. The men in the forest may find what they're searching for within you. 008, the antique shop. Somewhere in the northeast, although there are conflicting reports of its location, there is a small antique shop called Edson's Antiques and Importing. By the look of it, the store's been closed for decades, and for good reasons. Not the least of which is that it opens onto an alley instead of onto the street. The merchandise inside can't be seen through the murky glass, but you can usually make out the window display. The display, despite the fact that no one really knows how to get into the building since the doors apparently rusted shut, changes from day to day. A stuffed bear's head might show up on Monday and be gone on Friday, replaced with a large antique samovar. The floor beneath this merchandise is covered with newspapers written in a language that no human being has ever spoken or read, and the pictures. Well, let's just say you'd be amazed what you can fit in a samovar. 009, the Yellow Room. The exterior of the Tea at Row restaurant, located in downtown Calgary. There is a wall in the basement of the restaurant called Tea at Row that is, despite all attempts to paint it another shade, a sickly shade of yellow. The owner conceals the wall by putting a mirror and a couch up against it. However, if you remove both the couch and the mirror, you'll discover the wall's pale yellow tone. This is of no consequence, however, if you have come unequipped. In order to make use of phenomena number 9, you will need a small jar of hazelnut oil. Paint the outline of a door on the wall using the oil, and then push. The door you've drawn will open inward into a room with walls made from stucco that's been painted the same sickly yellow as the wall you passed through. The room appears to be a spartanly furnished study with furniture that puts you in mind of the South Sea Islands. On the desk you will find numerous papers written on the letterhead of the Dominion Bank, dated 1912. The papers predict every financial crash worldwide from 1912 until 20 years from now, when the predictions abruptly stop mid-sentence. Dr. J's notes. It should be noted that the predicted worldwide financial crashes are stated to occur from now, which would be 2009, when the keys were first posted, until 2029, 20 years later. Clearly there is some relation between the South Sea Islands, more commonly referred to as Polynesia, Micronesia and Melanesia, or the islands of the South Pacific, and the Dominion Bank. From the website for Tea at Row itself, Tea at Row Ristorante, Italian for theater, Tea at Row is located on Olympic Plaza in Calgary's downtown theatre district and is housed in the historic Dominion Bank building built in 1911. Urban explorer and acolyte Kyrat notes that he visited Tea at Row but was unable to locate the Yellow Room, 010, the salon. There is a salon in Inglewood that seems perpetually frozen in the late 70s. The decor, the clothing of the hairdressers, even the equipment and magazines seem to come to a stop around 1978. If you go there during the day, the able stylists will be able to provide you with a deftly executed, if extremely dated, haircut for a price that is equally as deflated and out of place. However, if you return during the night, the salon's true area of expertise will become apparent. Entering the shop after sunset, even if you just exited it, will reveal a shocking transformation. As before, the store will be furnished and appointed as though it were the late 70s, but the decades between then and now will now be visible. Everything is aged and cracked, as if it had been left to the elements. Most shocking of all, the bottles of hair product and comb sanitizer have been replaced with row on row of murky jars containing vague, fleshy shapes. One of the stylists will remain, and she will offer you a shave and a haircut. Refuse the shave, lest you be left faceless. Instead, ask the stylist to pick something that suits you and sit in one of the chairs. She will cut off your face with a straight razor, but the process will be strangely bloodless and you will feel nothing. Your vision will fade to black for a time, and when it returns one of the faces from the jars will have been seamlessly transplanted. Your features will, in every respect, be identical to whoever the face belonged to before the stylist stole it, and over time your body will change to resemble theirs as well. If you must vanish, this is how you do it. But be warned that you can never get your face back, and the friends and enemies of the face's owner will mistake you for them forever. 011, the church house. There is a house on Bow Crescent, near Beaucycle, which was once a small church. A few years ago a man bought it and began extensive renovations that included an extension on the back, moving the door so that it sat in the center, and completely redoing the interior to remove any signs of its previous usage. During this process the owner discovered that the house has a set of 16 plaques depicting the Stations of the Cross hidden behind the wallpaper. This is a problem, as there are only 14 stations. The owner removed them and placed them in the then unfinished home's basement. They remain there to this day, although the owner passed away earlier this year. If you wish to find them, arrange a viewing of the house with the real estate agent who the family of the previous owner has tasked with selling it. He will lay extensively about the house and its pedigree, and he will deny the existence of the stations in the basement. Wait until he has left you alone in the house's main room and sneak into the basement. When you find the 14 wooden plaques, you have until he comes down and finds you to place them in the correct order, substituting the 2 additional plaques into the story of the crucifixion. If you arrange them correctly, you will feel a wave of warmth cross over you and your death will be followed by an earthly resurrection as reward for your pilgrimage. 012, the Green Room. There is an apartment building on 16th Street that is slightly wider on the outside than it is within. Go to this building in full and ascend this staircase. You should find the door to the roof totally unlocked. If it is locked, leave at once. Someone is using the green room, and they likely don't want company. If the door opens, however, walk along the roof and count skylights. Eventually you should find one that doesn't look into an apartment or hallway. Instead it looks down into a dingy room with green metal walls. Break the skylight with a piece of debris and jump down. The room should be small and empty other than a metal desk and chair that have a distinctly institutional flavor. On the desk, you will find a folder full of papers. Take the folder rather than reading the papers on the spot. Breaking the skylight will have set off the alarm. Open the room's only door and step out. You will find yourself in your old high school, having just stepped out of the locker room. Leave. The folder contains documents and photos that describe, in great detail, your physical and mental health. They depict you as a patient in an institution, and they aren't far off. 013, the water of life. Throughout the city there are little fenced-off buildings with the logo of the city's wastewater department on metal signs in front of them or on the door. The buildings are identified by the signs as being anything from water testing buildings to pumping substations, and by and large, this is what they are. However, about half a dozen of these buildings actually contain something else. 4 of these buildings are part of the city's actual water treatment system. They contain pumps that push the city's water through thin grills made from human bone. The calcium from these bone filters is why Calgary's water is so often hard. The filters clean the water not only of contaminants, but of the city's collective sin for its involvement in the oil industry. The other 2 are shacks that contain taps. One of these buildings is where the filters are installed when they're full. The water from the tap passes through all of the filters and emerges brackish and foul. Drinking it, however, is the only way to permanently purify the city's soul. The other building contains a tap that dispenses water so pure that any scars, mutations, cancers or birth defects will vanish. 016, the bridal shop. The style of this entry is much more informal, like it was written for someone in particular, or as a note. So you're getting married? Fuck, I know you call it hand fastening, but that's bullshit. It's a wedding, even if you're not wearing white. Matt says you should try this place on 4th Southwest. The selection is shit and the staff is snotty, but they get all kinds of imported shit. Real weird Asian juju, and we all know that that's more important than how you look in some photos you're never going to look at again in your life, right? The secret is smell. Smell is really key for this kind of thing. If you haven't learned it already, you'll learn it soon. Smell tells you what kind of shit has been worked over on what you're about to wear. Avoid anything herbal. I know you dykes are wild about herbs and poultices and spices and all that shit, but that's just window dressing. No real powerful stuff is unrefined like that, especially the Asian imports. What you have in that scenario is some factory worker who's trying to pull a fast one by rubbing the thread with ginseng or something. If I were you, I'd pick something that smells like fish. Fish means Dagon, god of agriculture, which means prosperity, for the Canaanites and happiness for the Buddhists. Sure, it stinks, but I've smelled that vegan shit you people eat. You have no room to complain. 017, the hi-fi. There is an apartment in the southeast expressly rented to house a vintage, mint condition 70s hi-fi set. The set is kept in the otherwise bare living room, in a corner. The room is so bare that it lacks even a bulb in the ceiling. The walls are yellowed with nicotine and age, and the carpet is a little moldy around the edges. Cleaning the room, however, is not an option. There are always at least 2 acolytes in residence in the apartment. One sleeps while the other sits or stands along in the bar room, listening to the city's only numbers station. Unlike other numbers stations, this one can only be picked up by the hi-fi, and it is the only station the hi-fi can pick up. It comes in crystal clear no matter what is going on, although there is rarely anything to hear. If you are ever tapped to take over the onerous duty of listening, you will have to know what to listen for. The station consists of a single voice repeating the following phrase: 999, beat 9999 over and over again. The voice, which has been variously described as a small boy's, an old woman's, a baritone opera singer's and a gravelly rasp, reads the phrase ceaselessly without stopping for breath. Sometimes though, a single number in a single repetition of the phrase is different. When this happens, walk, don't run, walk into the hall closet. You will find a rotary telephone with the receiver off the hook. Lift it and repeat the phrase. Then wake your partner and begin to pray, 019, the vacant apartment. Downtown, in the mess of construction and demolition, rooms are sometimes left behind or else formed piecemeal out of extra walls or ignorantly enclosed spaces. It's said that a great many of them are connected, forming a secret in-between city, but the largest group that verifiably exists is a cluster of 6 rooms. Unfortunately, the location of these rooms appears to be transitory, with the same 6 chambers stumbled across by urbex enthusiasts and acolytes throughout the city. Entering this vacant apartment proves difficult because of its movement, but it can easily be spotted with patience. A bleached wooden door with a broken lock will appear from time to time in almost any basement or closet in any downtown building. When you pass through the door you will find yourself in a Spartan, unfurnished space. Every room, in fact, every wall seems to come from a different building or decade. The room is safe and warm, a haven that appears when you need it most. The walls, floor and ceiling are splattered with perpetually warm, wet blood, and occasionally other signs of violence can be found. Never try to break into the unfurnished apartment, never try to move in permanently and never ever fall asleep. 020, the clinic. Ride the 305 for exactly 6 stops. Where you get off doesn't matter. Then walk to the nearest medical clinic and ask the receptionist if you can see the on-call doctor. You'll be told that you can't. Ask for the other on-call doctor. Her face will go white as a sheet and she'll tell you to go to exam room 3. Wait there until the physician shows up, which could be anywhere from less than a minute to 6 hours. When he does show up, he'll be old, leathery skin, coal black eyes, and the medical paraphernalia of a bygone day. He'll begin the examination without exchanging pleasantries or asking you what's wrong. After the exam, he'll consult your file and tell you his prognosis. If you're healthy, you won't be when you leave the clinic. Ebola, rubella, SARS, he'll pick something nasty for wasting his time. You won't die of whatever he gives you. Instead, you'll be damned to wander the earth spreading it. If you're ill, however, he'll tell you it will clear up on its own by the end of the week. It will, as will any chronic pain or other long-term conditions. From that day on, no other doctor in the city will be willing to see you or even make eye contact. 021, the thrift store. There is a thrift store in the northwest with a shuttered door. The exterior walls are covered in moldy wooden shingles and the window display is aged to the point of decomposition. It is not, despite all appearances, closed. Patrons occasionally enter through the side door and leave, although they rarely find anything of interest. They also rarely find the proprietor, who never responds to the bell located on the counter. The bell does arouse his attention, however, so it would be in your best interest not to ring it. Instead, simply browse for a time. If you are as well versed in the secret history as you should be by now, objects of interest and historical significance, although no real power, will catch your eye. Many of them are belongings of other phenomena, including empty jars that used to house the tobacconist's preparations and a headset identical to the one in Viscount Bennet. Do not take any of these, or their original owners will return to collect them. The thrift store is a safe location to dispose of any refuse you collect over the course of your journey, but be warned that you can only dispose of small objects, and never anything truly dangerous to anything other than kayfabe. 022, the photographs. It is possible, although only by sheer luck, to come into possession of a set of photographs that depict your future. Travel to any 1-hour photo developer in the city and give the clerk a blank roll of Kodak film to develop. In the next hour, use an empty camera to take as many photographs of yourself or your home as possible. When you return to the store, the clerk will either chastise you for handing over the empty film and wasting his time or, ashen-faced, hand you a set of photographs. The cause of the clerk's discomfort will soon become clear. At least half of the photographs will depict you as you will look after your death, decomposing in whatever pose you were in when you snapped the corresponding shot. The others will show how you age, including clothing, scars, piercing and other artificial markings. The background will be wherever you shot the pictures with your empty camera, but in each shot the background will appear to be rendered with a slightly more antiquated photo process, working back from crystal clarity to sepia. 023, the television channel. If you steal cable in Cranston, a planned community in the southeast, you will find that rather than being blank and vacant, Channel 1 is given over to a foreign and unfamiliar test card and mumbled voices in a language that sounds Slavic but is utterly unrecognizable. In order to discover more, you must possess an old PAL television. Adjust the balances of color and contrast on your set, both at the same time, and wait for the test card to fade. Once you strike the right balance, the test card will be replaced by the image of a man sitting behind a desk. Though he and his companion will seem to be aware that you are watching them, they will never address you directly. Never watch this channel anywhere secure or safe, as it offers another avenue of entry. Watch the channel until the scene cuts away from the two men and into a series of grotesque clips no longer than 3 seconds in length. These are not all original. Records kept by Eddie Dickey indicate that at least 60 of the 143 clips are sampled from various films and snuff tapes. The surreal and visceral imagery will burn itself into your brain indelibly, but you will find in the morning that with it has come a master's knowledge of the fine art of mutilation and torture. This must be used sparingly, for the knowledge has brought with it a great pleasure at its exercise. You will, however, always be able to recognize their handiwork, even if you will find yourself admiring it. 024, the remote. There is a remote control that is sometimes found in pawn shops, hotel rooms, second-hand electronics stores and the like. It is small, about 3 inches by an inch, old, and the buttons are made of metal. They are also unmarked. The remote works on any television set regardless of age or brand, but all the television shows are strange and dated. If they had television in 1901, this is what the programs it played would look like. Like old films, they're interspersed with cards transcribing dialogue and providing context. Despite this, the footage appears documentary in nature, focusing on major events. As you continue watching, the shows will gradually move forward in years, depicting more events. Around 1920, these will start to become unfamiliar, occasionally the names or places will be wrong. By 1935, with a few exceptions, they will be utterly unrecognizable. The footage ends in 1948, with a strange variation of the Nazi German flag blowing in the wind atop a pile of rubble in a desolate wasteland.